A city in flames, a mind unshaken. Hello everyone. Tonight we're heading into the eye of the storm, a city collapsing under its iron weight, smoke curling up from marble ruins, and citizens screaming into the void. You stand in the middle of ancient Rome as riots splinter through alleyways like lightning. And the emperor himself, yes, Marcus Aurelius, sits calmly behind a half-broken column, jotting something down on a wax tablet while the world cracks open around him. You probably won't survive this. The mobs are angry, the Praetorian Guard is stretched thin, and someone just threw a goat. We're not even sure if it's alive, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. And hey, drop your location and what time it is where you're watching from now. Turn down the lights, turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started on tonight's journey together. You trudge along the Via Sacra with your tunic clinging to sweat-drenched skin. There's ash in the air fine as powdered bone. You taste it with every breath. Someone yells about bread, someone else is on fire. You're not sure which matters more, but Marcus, he just watches. His face doesn't twitch. His hand doesn't shake. He doesn't bark orders. He doesn't run, he writes. And here's the thing. This isn't the first time the city's fallen apart on him. It's 177 AD, and civil unrest feels like a weekly hobby for the Roman Empire. Tax hikes, grain shortages, a particularly boring gladiator lineup, lost Saturnalia. The people are restless. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, sits on a literal marble slab watching it all fall apart again. He should panic. He should scream, or cry, or at the very least cuss out the guy throwing goat feces from the balcony, but he doesn't. You edge closer. You want to understand how someone can stay that still while chaos floats with the end of the world. Turns out, he's rehearsed for this moment his entire life. Remember that time your phone died during a blackout and you thought you might literally implode from boredom? Now imagine doing that, but for your soul. Marcus didn't see suffering as an interruption, it was the main course. According to his Stoic training, life should be. And still, he's human, he has fears. He lost multiple children. Historians still debate whether his co-emperor Commodus was biologically his son or a chaotic cosmic punishment in the form of a narcissist with gladiator cosplay addiction. Either way, Marcus loved a monster, and he knew it back on the street. Someone punches a statue of Jupiter and breaks their hand. The emperor doesn't flinch. You can practically hear him thinking, what stands in the way becomes the way. It's more than a quote, it's a spell, a trick of perception. Marcus believes that every crisis is a forge, not a fire. You aren't being burned. You're being tempered. You want to laugh, but your sandals are melting. The mob charges the Senate steps. You expect blood. Instead, Marcus does something ridiculous. He walks directly toward them. No armor, no sword, just a dark wool cloak that smells like thyme and cedarwood. He doesn't shout, he doesn't command. He just speaks, soft, low, one sentence. No threats, no philosophy quotes. Just something like, "We are all Romans, and I do not fear my brothers." And they pause, not because of his words, but because he meant them. No bravado, just a man who'd faced war, loss, backstabbing, and plague and still hadn't built a wall around his soul. His stillness was louder than their rage. That's the part that hits you, not his power, his peace. Did you know Marcus wrote almost all of Meditations while on military campaigns? Most of it from tents, snow-covered hillsides, and smoky wall camps, not cozy villas. That's like writing your diary during the apocalypse. In longhand, with no coffee. Now that's discipline. Oh, and here's a fun fact. Marcus was once so sick with stomach issues that historians think he ruled parts of the empire lying down. literally horizontal, but even then, his mind stayed vertical, straight, sharp, immovable. There's something weirdly comforting about watching a man so outwardly fragile carry so much inner strength. Back on the street, the riot doesn't vanish, but it changes shape. People start shouting with Marcus instead of at him. The tension there doesn't break, it bends. You feel your heart slow down, and you start to wonder, what if you didn't have to panic every time the world looked like it was ending? What if the point wasn't to fix the fire but to survive it without letting it own your insides? The people disperse, not because they got what they wanted, but because Marcus reminded them of who they are. You walk beside him now. You notice he's muttering something to himself, a mantra, maybe, something quiet and cracked from overuse. He repeats it like a heartbeat. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You pass a child sleeping beside a burned-out cart. Marcus stops, nails, and places a chunk of bread beside the child's hand. He doesn't look back. You wonder if you'll ever be that still again. The emperor with a toothache. You wake up on the stiff military cot, and your back sounds like someone crushing dry leaves. Outside the tent, morning has the nerve to be cold and bright. Somewhere nearby, a man is screaming, probably another soldier with gangrene, or worse, another poet with opinions. You sit up slowly, because apparently, you slept in armor again. Rookie mistake. Marcus Aurelius is already awake. Of course he is. He's hunched over a writing board, rubbing his jaw. There's a twitch at the corner of his eye he thinks no one sees. You see it. He's in pain now. You'd think the Emperor of Rome could afford a decent dentist. But this is ancient medicine we're talking about. If your tooth hurts, the options are honey, prayer, or yanking it out with rusty pliers while a guy named Lucius holds you down and sings off-key. Marcus, he chooses none of the above. Instead, he breathes slowly, then writes something about how pain is just a message from the body, not a command. You want to slap the tablet out of his hands and say, yeah, well, tell that to your molar. But that's the trick. Marcus doesn't fight the pain, he studies it. He once wrote that pain is neither good nor bad, it's just a sensation. You don't need to attach a story to it. No internal monologue, no why me, just ... Sensation, tooth throbs. Breath moves, sky lightens, you keep going. You follow him through the muddy camp as soldiers stretch, cough, and argue about soup. He doesn't limp, though you know his joints ache. He doesn't wince, though that jaw looks like it's plotting mutiny. He stops to pat a mule on the head, as if suffering isn't a thing clawing at the base of his skull. Here's a quirky bit of history. Marcus may have suffered from chronic ulcers, headaches, and arthritis. But he never used it as an excuse to back out of his duties. In fact, he kept working during a plague that killed thousands, including his own friends and family. Historians still debate whether that plague was smallpox or measles, but either way it makes COVID look like a mild rash in comparison. And Marcus, he stuck around. No escape to the countryside. No hiding behind walls. He stayed, and he showed up, even when he couldn't stand for more than a few minutes at a time. You reach the edge of camp, and he stops. He closes his eyes and tilts his face toward the sun. The warmth looks like it hurts, but there's a ghost of a smile there, too. He murmurs, if it is endurable, then endure it. If not, it is soon over. Then he shrugs like he just read the weather report. Your teeth hurt in sympathy, and here's the real kicker. Marcus didn't see pain as the enemy. He saw it as proof that he was still alive, that the work wasn't done, that the gods haven't finished testing the structure of his soul. Most people flinch. Marcus leans in. Someone rushes up, breathless, babbling about the skirmish near the river. Marcus listens, nods, doesn't even rub his jaw. Then he walks calmly, silently toward the noise. You follow because ... Well, what else are you going to do? Go back to the tent and complain to the universe? No, you keep walking with the man who turns pain into pace. The riverbank is a mess, soldiers dragging bodies, cursing mud, trying to keep morale intact with bad jokes, and wine that smells like fermented goat. A centurion limps over, cut above his eye. Marcus takes one look and says, "You lived, that is fortune enough." That's not just a quote. That's his default setting. Pain equals proof of presence. You pause to drink from a flask that tastes like regret. Marcus is still standing there, back straight, jaw locked, whispering instructions, kindness, strategy, not one grunt, not one sigh. And then just when you think he might be made of marble, he stumbles, barely, but you catch it, a flicker in the knee, a sharp inhale, a crack in the illusion. He sees you see it, and instead of hiding, he lets it hang in the air like incense. Because that's the thing, Stoicism doesn't mean you feel nothing, it means you filter what you feel before letting it command you. Like putting a screaming toddler inside a glass box and saying, "Okay, I hear you," but you don't get to drive the chariot. You head back to camp in silence. A raven croaks something that sounds suspiciously like a curse word. Someone drops a pan, a soldier belches, life continues. And in the middle of it all, Marcus sits down, jaw still aching, and writes, "Do not let your soul go limp in pain. Let it remain shining and unshaken, as though the limbs belong to another." You wonder if you could do that. Could you hurt without hating it? Could you ache without building your identity around it? You remember the last time you had a toothache, you threatened to uninstall the universe. Marcus just keeps writing. The sun dips low, the shadows stretch long. Someone's playing a flute badly. Marcus smiles, maybe because of the music, maybe because he knows it's almost bedtime, and that means fewer speeches, fewer battles, fewer reasons to pretend the pain isn't there. But even now, you get it, he's not pretending, he's simply choosing what matters more, and tonight, what matters is that the fire in his jaw will pass. But the fire in his mind, that sharp, silent clarity that's eternal, letters to no one, read by everyone, the stars are out tonight, and they've never looked more unimpressed. You're on night watch, sitting near the edge of the camp, nursing lukewarm soup and wondering if you can fake a foot injury just to skip tomorrow's march. Marcus is nearby, cross-legged on a stool, scribbling something in the dim firelight. His face is blank, not cold, just emptied out. Like he's doing a puzzle no one else can see. He's writing again, of course he is. You've seen him do it almost every night. Not letters, not orders, not even speeches, just short, blunt phrases carved into a wax tablet. Sometimes he scratches them out before finishing. Sometimes he repeats the same line twice, like he's trying to convince himself. And the weirdest part, no one's ever going to read it. Except, of course, everyone eventually does. You're watching the birth of meditations, though Marcus would never call it that. To him, it's just self-therapy, a kind of philosophical journaling where he debates himself, like an overthinking barista with too much alone time. There's no plan to publish, no editor, no catchy titles, just the raw material of a man trying to stay upright while the world tries to tilt him sideways. He writes like it matters, because it does. Not to history to him. You sneak a peek at the wax. The words are simple. Something like, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." Bold advice from a guy who's literally running an empire and battling both plague and Germanic tribes. Did you know he may have written these lines while camped at the front line of the Marcomannic walls? Imagine journaling your inner doubts while spears are flying past your tent. It's like tweeting "I am enough" while your building is on fire. Here's a quirky fact. Marcus didn't write in Latin, even though he was the Roman emperor. He wrote in Greek, the language of philosophy, the language of thought. Why? Maybe because Greek made it easier to think about things like virtue, duty, and the uncooperative nature of public baths. You walk quietly around the fire, trying not to spook him, but he knows you're there. He doesn't stop writing, he just says, "You think too loudly." You want to reply instead. You sit, listen, and let the night pour in like black ink. Marcus keeps scribbling, and you realize something strange. These notes aren't just reminders, they're anchors. Each phrase is him grabbing himself by the metaphorical collar and saying, "Focus, stop whining. Don't be a coward, stop imagining how much worse it could be and just deal with what is." And he does this every day. Historians still debate whether the meditations were ever meant for an audience. Some say they were just private scribbles. Others think they were spiritual exercises designed to prepare for death, pain, or just another round of Senate arguments about taxes and sewer maintenance. Either way, they weren't for show, which makes them feel more real, like watching someone build a ladder while falling down a hole. You glance at the latest entry. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Well, that's not exactly pillow talk. But here's the thing, it works. Marcus doesn't need hype, flattery, or self-care Sundays. He needs brutal honesty served straight with a side of cosmic indifference. The universe owes him nothing, and yet he still tries to be decent. Especially when no one is watching. You shift on the cold stone. Your own thoughts feel like a swarm of bees. What am I doing with my life? Do I even have a purpose? What happens if the war never ends? What if the empire falls? Marcus just shrugs. Still writing. "You control none of that," he says softly, as if reading your mind. So focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, and how much soup you spill on your tunic. Okay, fine, that last part is yours, but the rest, that's Stoicism, baby. You think back to your last panic attack, the one where you convinced yourself the sky was falling because someone ghosted your message. Marcus would say, "Is it within your control? No. Then release it. Yes, then handle it." It's infuriating and freeing. You start to notice patterns in his writing. Lots of talk about death, about purpose, about waking up and doing your job even when your bed is warm and your spine is made of regrets. There's no fluff, no affirmations, just reminders to act like a grown-up in a world full of tantrums. And somehow, that feels comforting, because if he a man managing armies, emperorship, loss, illness, and family drama can make space every night to remind himself to be good, maybe so can you. You remember the line he wrote last week, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That phrase stuck to your brain like gum on a sandal. It's almost annoying how useful it is. Delayed train, the way. Rude boss, the way. Existential dread, yup, still the way. Suddenly, everything feels a little lighter, not because the problems vanish but because you stop expecting them to. Marcus closes his tablet. The fire is low. He leans back against a crate that smells like old cheese and dignity. "Most people waste their lives imagining what they'll do tomorrow," he says. "I just try to get through today without embarrassing myself." You snort. "That's a low bar," he smiles. "It's also realistic." And as the night deepens and the stars soften their glare, you feel the weight shift. Not lifted, just redistributed. You can carry this, one page at a time, one thought at a time. Marcus sleeps with the tablet next to him. Like a shield, like a compass, You wonder if your own thoughts could ever be worth writing down, or maybe that's the point. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to be true. You stretch out, eyes heavy. The fire crackles, somewhere in the distance. An owl asks an important question in Morse code. And you think, maybe tomorrow, you'll write something too. Fire in the forum, silence in the soul, smoke thick, angry plumes of it curling through the sky, like the empire itself is exhaling. You're running. Not because you're scared, though you are, but because Marcus told you to. And when Marcus tells you to run, you run. Even if everything inside you wants to stop and look at the chaos. Rome is burning, okay, not all of it. Just a very persuasive chunk of the foreign district. Someone knocked over a lantern, or maybe the gods were bored again. Either way, there's fire, there's panic. And there's an emperor walking toward the flames. You're not sure what's more insane, the fire or Marcus strolling into it like it's just another Tuesday. He doesn't bark orders, he doesn't scream. He just moves, eyes sharp, voice low, presence heavy like a storm that hasn't decided whether to break. Civilians flee past him, coughing and yelling. He nods at them, gently, like they've just asked for directions, instead of bolting for their lives. You catch up, you cough, you shout. We should go around. He shrugs. The shortest path is through. Of course it is. Here's the scene, marble columns crumbling in heat, statues losing their noses in heroic fashion, smoke drawing constellations no astronomer would claim, and there, in the middle of it, is Marcus, stepping through ash like it's snow. This isn't his first fire. Remember the Antonine Plague. That decade-long party crasher that historians still argue about. Was it smallpox, measles, divine punishment for bad architecture? Either way, Marcus ruled through that. Didn't flee, didn't pass the crown. Stayed in the city, walked among the sick, buried people he loved, kept writing. And this a fire, just another page in the book. He grabs a man by the shoulders gently and says, "Panic is more dangerous than flame. Breathe." And the man, eyes wild, clothes scorched, does. He breathes. Because the emperor told him to, and you breathe too, because why not? It's catching. Then Marcus stops. There's a collapsing roof ahead. Screaming child, classic cliché, and Marcus doesn't hesitate. "Cover your mouth," he says, as if that's going to protect either of you from a hailstorm of bricks and bad luck. Then he charges in. You follow, because apparently that's what you do now. Follow a philosopher into a burning building. Inside, it's chaos, heat like a slap. Darkness sliced only by flickers of violent orange. You hear the child. You see Marcus, crawling calm, muttering, "Obstacles are opportunities. Every blaze has a path." Did you know the Stoics used to practice disaster scenarios, like mentally rehearsing losing everything: your house, your job, your pet turtle named Maximus, and being okay with it? They called it premeditatio malorum, literally, premeditation of evils. Marcus didn't just preach it. He lived it. Fires, plagues, betrayals. He prepared for all of it, not by stockpiling weapons or gold, but by fortifying his mind. You drag the kid out. Marcus carries a half-burnt chair like it's sacred. Turns out it was part of the Senate furniture. Symbolic. He matters, burns easy. Once outside, he checks the child, nods to you, then surveys the wreckage. People swarm, trying to save scraps, family heirlooms, favorite tunics. He lets them, then turns to you. "Everything burns," he says. "That's not the tragedy. The tragedy is forgetting you can rebuild." You want to laugh, you want to scream. Instead, you sit down next to a smoldering cart and try not to think about the fact that you smell like roasted goat and fear. He sits beside you. The sun is setting behind ash clouds, throwing red across the ruins like a bloody curtain call. Marcus watches it, arms resting on knees, you ask, "Aren't you angry?" He looks at you like you just asked if birds wear shoes. What good is anger when the world already burns? He says, "It only adds fuel. I prefer water." You roll your eyes, mostly to keep them from tearing up. And that's when he adds, "But yes, I feel it. I just don't hand it the reins." That's it. That's the difference. It's not that Marcus doesn't feel. It's that he refuses to be ruled. Here's a weird fact. Marcus was probably the most powerful man in the known world, and yet he consistently reminded himself that he was, essentially, dust in a toga, temporary, replaceable. He wrote things like, "Soon you will have forgotten everything. Soon everyone will have forgotten you," cheery stuff. Historians still debate if this was healthy humility or a first-century existential crisis. Either way, it kept his ego on a leash. You look around, fires dying, people rebuilding. Some already arguing about whose fault it was. Classic Romans and Marcus. He's already standing, already planning. "Tomorrow we clear the rubble," he says. "Then we rebuild, but better," and you realize that's the game. Not avoiding disaster, not praying it away, but walking into it, eyes open, and asking, "What now?" Marcus starts walking, you follow. Because this man, this emperor, this flame-dodging philosopher, he makes ruin look survivable, even necessary. You pass a statue half melted into abstraction. Marcus stops, "Fitting," he says. Even stone forgets its shape eventually. Then he smiles, not because things are okay, but because they're not. And he's still here, still walking, still choosing clarity over chaos. And maybe, you think, that's the whole trick. To meet fire with stillness, to let loss sharpen you instead of soften you, to look into the smoke and say, "I know who I am, and I'm not afraid of what's next." The forum will rise again, Marcus will write again, and you'll keep walking beside the man who refused to scream when the world turned to ash. The emperor dies, but the voice stays. The air smells like pine, ink, and medicine. You're in a tent again, but not the one from the battlefield. This one's quieter, warmer, and smells slightly of boiled herbs and that weird goat cheese the physician swears will calm the organs. Marcus lies on a cot, wrapped in a plain wool blanket. No purple robes, no royal fanfare. Just an old man with a cough that sounds like the gods are trying to collect a debt. It's happening, the moment you've been dreading since the first time he quoted Epictetus, "Adieu during latrine duty." The moment the world loses the one person who actually made sense of it. And he's calm. Of course he is. You offer water, he waves it off. Not rudely, just unnecessary. "Everything I need is already here," he murmurs. "Where?" you ask, half sarcastic, half desperate. He taps his forehead, then his chest. You want to argue, but what's the point? He's right. He always was, in that maddening, comforting way. The man made dying look like just another Tuesday, but here's the twist. He's not trying to be brave. Marcus isn't posing for the history books. He's not staging a final monologue. There's no camera, no scribe, just a man who spent his whole life preparing for this very moment, and somehow, instead of dread, there's peace. He reaches for his tablet, his hand shakes. You instinctively move to help, and he lets you. His fingers guide yours to the wax like a teacher tracing letters with a student. He whispers, "Look within. There is the fountain of good." You carve it carefully. This might be the last line he ever writes. Did you know that when Marcus died in 180 CE in Vindobona, modern-day Vienna, his death was so quiet? Some historians believe the gods didn't even realize at first. He didn't scream, didn't call for gods or family. He just faded. Historians still debate what killed him. Was it the plague again? Poison? Exhaustion? Does it matter? His work was done, not the ruling the living. You sit beside him as his breath slow, the candle flickers. Outside, life continues, soldiers arguing about rations, someone tuning a lyre badly, the sound of boots in gravel. The world doesn't pause for emperors, and yet you feel the universe tilt. His eyes flick open one last time. Remember, he says, what? But he's already gone. Silence. You stay there for a long time, not moving, not crying, just listening, half expecting another quote, another joke about duty, or goat cheese. Nothing comes, and yet, everything remains, because here's the thing, Marcus didn't teach you how to be like him. He taught you how to be like yourself, but better, less reactive, more grounded, able to withstand the wind without snapping in it. And you realize, he's not gone, not really. He left breadcrumbs in wax. Trails of thought designed to blast flesh and marble, lines like, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Death smiles at us all we can do is smile back. These aren't quotes anymore. They're tools. You'll need them, because the empire is changing. His son, Commodus, is taking over and, well, let's just say you wouldn't trust Commodus with a fruit basket, let alone a continent. But Marcus knew this, and he still did his duty. He didn't run, he didn't despair, he just kept showing up. Maybe that's the legacy, not statues, not walls, but the quiet resilience of a man who faced the void and whispered, I'm ready. You leave the tent eventually, carrying the tablet like it's sacred, the words still fresh, still warm. People ask, is he gone? You nod. But your eyes say something else. He's here, in the way you speak, in the way you breathe before reacting, in the way you pause when you want to scream, and instead say, what would Marcus do? You bury him near the Danube, no grand tomb, no gold, just a pile of stones, a circle of quiet, and a small inscription. Live as if you were already dead. The soldiers look confused. You smile. He'd love that. Later, by the fire, you write, not because you think you're a philosopher, not because you want followers, but because it helps. You write, today I didn't punch Commodus. That's a win. And then, pain is inevitable. Panic is optional, and finally, Marcus would have told me to sleep, so I will. You put the tablet away, you look up. The stars haven't changed, but you have. 300-word wind down. The fire's nothing but embers now. The camp is quiet. Even the wind seems to hush itself in reverence. You lie back on the cool earth, arms behind your head, looking up at the same stars Marcus once rode under. And it's strange how peaceful it feels, because the journey's over, but not really. His words keep walking with you. They echoes, soft as breath, behind your ribs, reminding you that the world doesn't owe you comfort, that fear isn't prophecy, that the mind is both battlefield and sanctuary. You remember the weight of his silence, the power in his calm. And maybe, just maybe, you'll carry that into tomorrow, into your next heartbreak, your next traffic jam, your next argument about who left the kitchen dirty again. Because now you know, you don't have to be perfect, just present, just grounded, just ... better than yesterday. That's the Stoic way. So let the past dissolve, let the fire die. Let the memory of Marcus slip into your bloodstream like tea steeping in hot water. You're still here, and maybe that's enough now. Take one last breath, slow and deep. Let it out like you're releasing a weight you didn't even know you carried. Feel the room grow still, the edges blur, the world soften. It's okay to sleep now. The Emperor is resting, and so should you. End of script. Good night.